About a year ago, I went through the toughest experience of my life. The details don't particularly matter, but it was something that rocked me to my absolute core. I lost everything. My world was turned upside down, and I know I'll never be the same. If you're struggling, if you've been abandoned, if it feels like you've been, shipwrecked due to no fault of your own, then Subnautica will help you understand your own story. The game begins with you crashing onto an alien planet covered by vast oceans. Think of the friend who turned their back on you, the job you unjustly lost, the family member that hurt you. You've been sent to this place against your will. It's unfair. It isn't right. You deserve better. But you're here now, and it's up to you to get out. When a life-shattering event happens, when we lose everything, we can find ourselves at rock bottom, starting over completely from scratch. Now, it can feel this way, but what you feel and what's actually true are very different, but more on that later. Starting over is hard, but you have everything you need to do it. In Subnautica, you start off with just a life pod and a fabricator machine. The fabricator isn't unlike your mind. It can produce anything you tell it to, but it can't do that without a blueprint. And for those, we'll need to get out of the pod and into the water. This is a great metaphor for being stuck. Being stuck in mental health talk is when it feels like you've plateaued, stopped making progress. Nothing you're trying is working. But really, this is just an illusion. If you play Subnautica, the solutions are obvious. I just don't have what I need in order to move forward. The same is true for being stuck. Furthermore, within the confines of the game, sitting around the life pod, waiting for rescue, it's not what you should be doing, is it? We know this intuitively from playing video games. The point is never to just sit in one place doing nothing. We know we're supposed to explore, grow, advance, level up, and ultimately win. Is life any different? I know life isn't a game. The stakes are real. When we get hurt, there are real consequences. But the principles are the same. If we can overcome the risks in living, act fearlessly with purpose, life can be just like in Subnautica. The fact that you can play the game and win already proves that it's possible. But let's start small. We can build up to what winning looks like. Now, we've talked about the mind being like the fabricator. Fabricator needs blueprints. In real life, the more you read, the more you listen, the more you get to know yourself, process what happened to you, whatever it was, you'll find your blueprints. It just takes time. And though it can feel tedious in the game at times, poring over the seabed for that one missing piece, it isn't that different from what you're doing in life. Gathering the pieces, one bit at a time. It's just how it goes. If you started the game with everything unlocked, it wouldn't be much of a game. Think of a rich and privileged person who'd never struggled for anything and probably never will. They looked after their entire lives, But are they capable? Could they take care of themselves if they suddenly had to? Could they change a tire? Probably not. For those of us who have to contend with the demands of ordinary life and the harsh reality of mental struggles, we need to trust that with enough searching, though we may have to go over the same ground over and over, we'll find the bits of truth, insights, and emotional growth that we're going to need in order to bring healing and balance into our lives. I've had to learn a lot about the brain on my journey, how it works, its different parts, and how you can heal it. All of us have what's called neuroplasticity, and some studies suggest it lasts well into middle age. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change and recover from things like abuse, post-traumatic stress, and traumatic brain injury. I'm going to get a little into the science, so bear with me. You've got a brain. It's the organ of your personality. It's worthwhile to know how it works. To understand neuroplasticity, all you really need to know is this. Your brain is made up of neurons. Some estimate up to 86 billion of them. When these cells fire, they emit electrical signals to each other. The layers of connections form the different networks of your brain. The quality of the communication between these networks is called coherence. The brain is divided into two hemispheres, the left and the right. When your mental health is suffering, there may be a lack of coherence, networks not adequately sharing information. There can also be slower communication called phase lag, which can lead to foggy thinking. In the ideal scenario, the networks of your brain are working optimally with ideal levels of connectivity. You can actually go and get your brain looked at with what's called a QEEG, or quantitative electroencephalogram. The electrical signals your brain emits can be detected and measured. These patterns are measured in waveforms, hence brain waves, and are coded by color if you get a brain scan. Green is good, blue is no activity, red is too much activity. So if you're stressed out, if you're trying to do a math problem but just can't get it, your brain under a scan would light up with all these different colors. And that's how it is all day, every day, all the time. There's a symphony in your brain. And to a certain extent, you are the conductor. Now, it's important to know that what you consider to be your conscious mind, your identity, your personality, are all contained in what's called the default mode network. This is where all of the memories and experiences you've had are stored that tell you who you are. The funny thing about the brain, though, is that certain networks can't directly communicate with each other. This is why simply telling yourself to calm down if you're upset doesn't work, but putting your hand over your heart and taking a few deep breaths does. One of the major organs for stress in your brain is called the amygdala. It's about the size of an almond. It sits at the base of your brainstem. This organ cannot think. In the left hemisphere of your brain, the verbal hemisphere, can't speak to it. This is why you jump at a jump scare, or your heart sinks into your stomach when you get an email from your boss scheduling a surprise meeting. For some of us, due to chronic stress, your amygdala is finely tuned and constantly active. A rule of the brain is that the parts you use the most become dominant. This again happens outside of your conscious awareness. The amygdala is one part of a larger network called the limbic system. In the right circumstances, this system can take over your entire brain, run your life without you even realizing it's happening. This is especially true if you look at addictions. Chronic smokers, drinkers, drug users all have overactive limbic systems. When working normally, the limbic system keeps us aware of potential danger, regulates our emotions, retrieves memories, helps us make decisions. But if we've been abused, if we've been put under constant stress, the limbic system can adjust to where it only feels threatened and can't be shut off. Things like alcohol or nicotine can temporarily soothe an inflamed limbic system, but it's a temporary fix and typically comes with detrimental health effects. In very serious cases, the stress can overwhelm the entire system, quite literally shut off your left hemisphere, cutting you off from higher brain functions, logical processing, decision making. You're left to make a crucial decision with only your right hemisphere, your emotional brain. This would explain why you can't make sound decisions when constantly under stress. One bad situation seems to create another. There's no question that it would have been better to not have been abused, not be abandoned, not be ignored, treated unfairly, forgotten. But once we can recognize that the damage done to us can be reversed, not without effort, but reversed, that's where the real work can begin. When you play games, you're primarily engaging your frontal and prefrontal cortex. Your frontal cortex is home to what's called the executive network. It's what you use when you're driving a car or you're engaged in a task. It helps you process language, pick up on social cues, and initiates motor controls like your hands and feet, just like you hold the wheel of the car or work the pedals with your feet. Now, the good news is that if you're stressed or suffering from negative thoughts and feelings, you can shut them off by playing a game. This is why getting up and doing something is literally better than stewing in an endless cycle of negativity. I'm not saying just be positive, but pointing out the mechanics of how your brain works. Give yourself a task and your brain will not be able to simultaneously worry and perform the task. It will, in the literal sense, need to shut off the worry in order to function. I will admit this is sometimes easier said than done. Depression is a real thing. If our bodies are depleted of the neurotransmitters that control our levels of happiness and motivation, and peeling yourself off the couch and getting out there can be a task and a half. This is where your brain's award system, dopamine, comes in. Dopamine is known as the reward chemical. It's what gives you that get up and go to accomplish things. We get dopamine when we interact socially, when we get a job offer, when we kiss someone, when something good happens as a result of our hard work. If we're terrorized by a despotic boss, abused by a spouse, punished by an unforgiving society, then our sources of dopamine can dry up fairly quickly and take months, if not years, to rebuild. This can lead to what's called anhedonia. Our brain literally stops producing dopamine. Here's where Subnautica comes in. By simulating another world, you're instantly removed from the context of your own life. That abusive boss, that rude coworker, that insult you had to take on the chin, they fade in the background. You're as far away from that as possible, at least as far as your brain's concerned. And here, you have a task to complete. No one is going to pop into the game and thwart your efforts, put you down, tell you you're not worthy. It's just you trying to make your way off this alien planet and stay alive. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this first segment of what will be a multi-part series on mental health and Subnautica. Stay tuned for the next video. Should be up in a couple of days, and I appreciate you listening. Let me know what you think in the comments, if there are any other games that you've played that have helped your mental health. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Those things are a huge help and will encourage me to make more videos. Until next time, game on.